So you have this, let's just call it the trifecta of Stoicism, or the big three, right? You have
Yeah.
Epictetus, Marcus Aurelius, Seneca. It seems like Marcus is primarily your guy. I don't know, but I've been very curious to see how different people resonate with different Stoic thinkers. And I'm curious,
Yeah.
number one, who your primary influence is, and secondly, why you think that is, and how you think different people are attracted to different Stoic thinkers.
Sure. Well, it's interesting too about philosophy. Like most people are never forced to read the Stoics because professors don't like them as much because there's not as much room for interpretation. Like it's pretty straightforward. And I
Right.
think that's why you like Seneca. I like him as well. It's like he says these sort of very timeless, eminently practical truths in a straightforward, clear way. And they talk about it in the context of like our actual problems. Like they talk about, hey, like, Seneca will be writing a letter. It's like, hey, like, I heard like your wife died. Like, here's some advice.
Yeah.
Or it's like,
I hear
hey,
you're getting slandered in the Senate, or there's a lawsuit pending.
yeah,
Here are my thoughts. Yeah.
totally. Totally. So I like you, I lean towards Seneca, but also Marcus Aurelius because they were two, like Seneca was one of the most financially successful men in Rome. He was an advisor to Nero. He was a sort of famous tutor and playwright, but he was also skilled at investments. So he was very financially successful. So when you read his stuff, he's dealing with the same timeless problems that anyone who has success or works in business deals with. Bad bad markets, luxury. He's just sort of dealing with all the temptations of business that he's talking about. So I like him a lot as well. Personally, I like Marcus Aurelius. I like the notion. Like what's so fascinating to me about him is he was literally the most powerful man on earth. Like he was worshipped as a god in his own lifetime. He could do whatever he wanted. And you read this book that he wrote primarily for himself, and it's just like notes about self-discipline, about being a good person, about like forgiveness, about honor, about treating people well. That's where I like it. I get the most practical benefit in terms of like leadership and self-awareness and stuff like that. So that's why I like Marcus Aurelius. Although I will say, I think it's funny, like you read this book and at the beginning, Marcus Aurelius is like sort of thanking all the people who like gave him lessons. And like one of the lessons he learned was like not raping his slaves. So it's like, it's sort of pretty, it's very, it's on the one hand, it's very relatable. Like he congratulates himself for never having laid a hand on his slaves. So you can sort of take it gives you a pretty clear idea of what he's alluding to there. But you realize like it's very relatable, but then also very foreign at the same time.
Right.
But what other person in that position do we have a document about their thoughts? Like when you could literally do anything you wanted without repercussion. Here's a guy like writing notes to himself about, being a good person, not taking advantage of everything that he could take advantage of, not like forgiving people and on all this stuff, which I take a lot of personal value out of. And I think his writing is so clear and straightforward, and it's written in this sort of it's written in these epigrams that are easy to remember.
Mm-hmm.
Then Epictetus is great too. He's a little more lecture-y, and because he was a teacher, so like you're getting the lectures.
Gets into the cosmos a bit too, in some pretty esoteric ways that aren't immediate. They're more abstracted. I think more professor friendly for interpretation.
He's the most religious of the philosophers, of the Stoics as well. Which personally, not being a religious person, doesn't have the same amount of relevance for me. Like when you read Marcus Aurelius, he's not talking about like Zeus and stuff,
right.
Which I think makes it feel a little bit more relatable. And it's definitely the same is true with Seneca. Like if you'd never heard of Seneca and someone took his works and translated them and took out all the anachronisms, you could very easily fool someone into thinking this was written like in the last decade.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, no, that for me was critical. And I mean, the way that I try to define philosophy for people who have never read philosophy or who have been put off by philosophy as they perceive it is, this is an operating system for making better decisions in your life. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
And I found it so incredibly powerful.